Every successful man you follow online has a highlight reel. The wins, the results, the transformation photos, the evidence that the work is working and the life is building and everything is moving in the right direction. What they do not post, what they almost never talk about, is what happened in the dark. The weeks where nothing moved, the months where the effort was real but the results were invisible, the moments of genuine doubt, not the performed doubt that sounds humble in an interview, real doubt. The kind that sits in your chest at 2 in the morning and asks you seriously whether any of this is going to work. The days they wanted to quit and almost did. The internal battles that nobody sees, that nobody claps for, that will never appear in a post or a caption or a success story. Today we go behind the highlight reel because that is where that guy is actually built. Setup. Here is something I want you to understand, and I want you to hear this clearly. Most men who start building themselves seriously, who get the habits in place, who lock in the morning, who start training, who begins to feel the momentum, eventually hit a wall. Not a wall of laziness, they are committed. Not a wall of ignorance, they know what to do. A wall of mental fragility. The habits are in place, but the mind behind them is not built to survive the inevitable storms. Failure, rejection, slow progress that makes the whole thing feel pointless. The weight of comparison, the quiet, persistent voice that says, "It is not working, maybe this is not for you." That wall is where most self-improvement journeys end. Not with a dramatic conscious quit, with a slow fade, a gradual return to comfortable. A man who was becoming that guy and then quietly stopped. What I am about to share with you are not strategies. They are not hacks or techniques or things to try. They are the mental principles that successful men operate by, quietly, consistently, without posting about it. The things they live by without always naming them. The things that keep them standing and building long after everyone else has sat down. These are what they never post about. These are what separates the men who make it from the men who almost did. He responds, he does not react. There is a gap, a fraction of a second, between what happens to you and what you do about it. Most men live in that gap without knowing it exists. Something happens, bad news, criticism, a setback, a person who disrespects them, and the response is immediate, emotional, unfiltered, often destructive, not because they are bad men, but because they have never trained the pause. That guy has trained the pause until it is automatic. Something arrives, and before he does anything, he breathes, he processes, he asks himself one question: what response does my standard call for here? Not what does my emotion want to do, not what would feel satisfying in this moment, what does my standard call for? And then he responds from there, from his standard, not from his wound, not from his anger, not from the part of him that wants to react and feel justified. That gap, that tiny trained deliberate pause, is where self-mastery lives, and the man who owns that gap owns his outcomes. In every conversation, in every setback, in every moment where the untrained mind would have made things worse. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always control what you do next. That is the principle. That is the practice. He uses pressure as fuel, not as a proof he should stop. Most men have been conditioned to interpret pressure as a warning signal, as a sign that something is wrong, that the path is too hard, that maybe they are not cut out for this, that the discomfort they are feeling is the universe telling them to reconsider. That guy has rewired this completely. He has trained himself to read pressure differently. When the resistance builds, when the workout gets hard, when the project hits a wall, when the rejection arrives, when the doubt gets loud, he does not interpret it as a stop sign. He reads it as a marker. A marker that says you are in the territory where most men turn back, which means if you keep going, you'll be standing where most men never reach. That reframe, that single shift in how you read the feeling of pressure, changes everything about how you move through hard things. The discomfort does not disappear, but it stops being a reason to stop. It becomes a reason to lean in. The most important growth in a man's life happens in the exact moments he wants to quit. That guy knows this, and that knowledge is what keeps him moving when everything else says stop. He controls what he can and releases what he cannot. One of the greatest drains on a man's mental energy, one of the most invisible and exhausting things a man can do, is invest emotional weight in things that are completely outside his control. The economy, other people's opinions of him, whether someone responds to his message, the outcome of a situation that has been decided and cannot be undone, the comparison to another man's timeline, all of it outside his control, all of it draining his energy every single minute he keeps feeding it. That guy has built a ruthless clarity about the line between what is his to control and what is not. On the inside of that line, his efforts, his attitude, his standard, his preparation, his response. He is relentless. He gives everything he has to the things he can actually influence. On the outside of that line, he lets go completely, not passively, not giving up, just releasing the grip on what was never his to hold. And here is what most people do not expect. Releasing the uncontrollable does not make you weaker, it makes you sharper. Because all the energy that was leaking into the things you cannot change flows back into the things you can. And the man who is fully present in what he can control is the most effective man in any room. He talks to himself like a man he respects. I want you to pay attention, really pay attention to the conversation you are having with yourself right now. Not out loud, the one happening beneath everything else. The running commentary on your performance, your progress, your worth, your chances. The voice that shows up when you make a mistake, when the results do not come, when you compare yourself to someone further ahead, when you fall below your standard and have to decide what to think about yourself for the rest of the day. Most men speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they care about. Brutal, catastrophic, relentlessly focused on everything going wrong. And then they wonder why the confidence does not come, why the belief does not hold, why the standard keeps slipping even when the desire is real. The internal voice is the most powerful performance tool available to any man, and most men have turned it against themselves. That guy has made his internal voice an ally, not through empty affirmations, not through pretending everything is fine when it is not, through honest, fair, grounded self-talk that hold him to his standard without destroying him when he falls short of it. When he makes a mistake, the voice says, "That was below your standard. What does your standard require you to do now?" Not, "You are pathetic." Not, "You always do this." Not, "Who were you kidding thinking you could build something real?" The inner coach, not the inner critic. Build one, because the man you are becoming needs an ally in his own head, not another enemy. He plays the long game when everyone else quits. This is the principle that makes all the others matter, and the one that determines whether everything we have talked about in this playlist actually builds into something or fits. That guy does not measure his progress in days. He does not measure it in weeks. He thinks in years, in decades. He has built a relationship with time that most men in the instant gratification world never develop, and that changes everything. A bad week in a 10-year journey is not a crisis. It is a data point. It is Tuesday. A month of slow progress is not evidence that it is not working. It is part of the compounding that is happening beneath the surface, invisibly, relentlessly, whether he can see it or not. The man who thinks in years does not panic when the results are slow. He does not quit when the momentum dips. He does not look at another man's highlight reel and conclude that he is behind, because he is not playing the same game on the same timeline as anyone else. He is playing his game on his timeline with his standard, and he will still be playing, still building, still growing, still becoming, long after the men who started with him have settled back into comfortable. The men who succeed are not always the most talented. They are not always the most intelligent. They are almost always the ones who stayed the longest. be the man who stays. The storm. I want to say something directly to you. There will be a moment, maybe it is coming soon, maybe it has already arrived, where everything you are building feels like it is falling apart, where the progress is invisible, where the standard feels impossible to hold, where the version of yourself you are becoming feels very far away, and the old version, the comfortable version, the version that did not ask this much of you, feels very close. That moment is not a sign you are failing. That moment is a test. And that guy passes it. Not because he does not feel it, he feels every bit of it, but because he has already decided what he does when the storm arrives. 3 things. Write these down if you need to. First, return to the smallest habit. Not the vision, not the goal, not the big picture, the smallest daily habit. Train. Read 10 pages. Do the hard thing first. When everything is moving, the habit is the anchor. Hold the anchor. Second, shorten the time horizon. Stop thinking about the year. Stop thinking about the month. Think about today. What does today need from you? Not everything, just today. Handle today, and then tomorrow, handle that too. Third, talk to yourself like that guy. Not like the man in the storm. Not like the man who is afraid it is all falling apart. Like the man who has been through storms before, who is still standing, who knows with complete certainty that the storm does not last, and that what is built on the other side of it is stronger than anything built in calm weather. The storm will pass. It always does. And that guy is still there when it clears. Close and bridge. What successful men do differently, what they never post about, is this. They keep going when everything says stop. Not because they are superhuman, not because they do not feel the weight of it, not because the doubt does not visit them the same way it visits a man who is building something real, but because they have built a mind, deliberately, quietly, over time, that does not accept stopping as an option. That mind is not something you are born with, it is something you build, principle by principle, day by day, storm by storm, and you are building it right now. You have the habits, you have the mental game. The next video is about the third pillar of the foundation, purpose and money, because that guy is not just disciplined and mentally strong, he is building something real in the world, something that lasts, something that compounds, something that matters. The next video is about how. Watch it now, the work continues. We are not done, keep elevating. Remember the goal, highest elevation of the self. If someone you know is in the storm right now, send them this. It might be exactly what they need to hear.